Hi, everyone. Welcome to our broadcast. My name is Curtis Brooks. This is That Man Show. I'll be your host, executive coach, men's life coach, and transformational speaker for men. And guys, this is my first time here, back here on LinkedIn. It has been a while, so I want to apologize. I just kind of practiced this thing out here, so I am rushing here just a tad here. So again, I do apologize for that. Let me turn my speaker down. I decided not to use my headphones today. So yet again, this is That Man Show. This is the first show that we're doing of this year, actually. Last year, we did a broadcast entitled Leadership Thursday, each Thursday at 7 p.m. So we'll be doing the same thing here, but under a different title. Again, That Man Show. So again, welcome, guys. We've got a great show for you. The title of this show is The Entropic Leader. Who is he or she? How to design leadership for purpose. Now, this word entropic, we get the word entropy. And it is a very interesting word. It actually comes from the scientist space or profession. It is having to do with thermodynamics. So it is the second law for thermodynamics. And essentially, that is that it is the what's the word I'm looking for. It is the calculation or the I can't get my words right here together. I apologize, but it is just the order of chaos, and actually under where chaos is out of, or chaos is what's the word I'm looking for? Chaos is an ensuing threat, and I'll just put it that way. So let me get the definition. I do apologize here. I am kind of rushing, so I kind of hate that, but nevertheless, this is live, guys. So we just kind of roll with the punches here. So what we have here in my my definition here, we've got the definition for entropy here. I promise you guys, we're going to get into some great conversations here. So I'm just a little bit off kilter here. Had to rush here at the last minute here. So we got it's here somewhere. I do apologize. Okay, so we have the definition for entropy. Again, I just kind of use the variation of the word entropy, and I came up with entropic. But the word entropy, it means the natural state of disorder and transformation. So basically, this is, I've watched many videos in regards to that and just trying to kind of wrap my mind around it, because it is a very, very interesting word. So we got off to a rough start here, but nevertheless, we'll be much smoother in the future in regards to our my conversations here. So what I put together after watching so many different videos in regards to trying to just make sense of this word entropy, because it's a big word. It's few letters or several letters, but it's a big word and it means a lot. And so, as I just shared with you, it is the natural state of disorder. So here's what I came up with as I was preparing my son's lunch just this past week, or sometime within this week. And as I was pouring his chips into his bag, I thought about, that's very interesting, because basically when you can control something, a situation or a matter, it is known to be low entropy, I should say. But if it's more so a matter that is not controlled, it is more so high entropy. And that's exactly what we want to discuss today, because as I was preparing this lunch, I said, wow, that's interesting, because the less you give to something, and this is just my thinking behind this, the less you give to something, there's a sense of control, if you will. And I'm going to tie this into that entropic leader, that leader that deals with chaos, and knowing that chaos is ensuing at any moment, but that leader who's able to bring chaos under his or her thumb. And so we're going to dive more into that. So, but as I was just really kind of diving into this definition of entropy, it had me to think that, wow, this is a huge word, because oftentimes we, as people, we want to try and control things. But yet this entropy, it's one of the things that you just can't control. Now, I was relating this to preparing my son's lunch, but in fact, it relates to the disorder of energy. And when we think about that in regards to who we are as people, how much we talk about ourselves or we don't talk about ourselves, how much we've discussed, shared just about ourselves in different conversations, I thought about this low entropy. Then I thought about the high entropy, because oftentimes, even in our personal lives, entropy or the low entropy, there are things that are controlled to a degree. But when we get to a place where these matters are out of control, so to speak, or at least seemingly out of control, unattended, there is the propensity to move into that place of high entropy, and meaning that there is chaos. I guess it can be controlled chaos. This is kind of what I've learned. And again, this is a scientific term that I've had to kind of wrap my mind around, and just sit with this for several days actually, and just begin to just kind of make sense of it. But it is, again, just a few in letters, this word entropy, but it absolutely packs a punch in regards to its meaning. And again, that meaning is, it is the natural state of disorder and transformation. And so how do we get beyond this natural state of entropy, natural state of disorder? So anything that's left unattended, it is subject to get worse. That's just the way it is. If it's left unattended, and it just makes sense here. If something is left unattended, the likelihood of that thing becoming worse, and it stayed and to the point where it was a functioning thing, or even for us as people, we were in a different place or a particular place, and we had matters maybe of unforgiveness that we have not dealt with. So we had those matters, and this is just for the most part how entropy works, that it is controlled to a degree where that when we are hesitant on dealing with matters, primarily of our own dealings, or just not necessarily our own fault, but just our own on a personal level, things that we may need to deal with, when we are aware of those things and we don't deal with them, the likelihood of those things flowing into a space of high entropy, meaning that they're going to a place of disorder to eventually transform us. And we as people, we like to say that we're in control on a degree, but I don't necessarily believe that we are in control in most cases, because there are going to be issues and challenges that we are all dealing with on some level. And for this person, this individual who is the entropic leader, he or she, they understand that chaos, or just the ensuing of chaos is a threat, or disorder is a threat to progress. And he or she understands that. So this evening, we're going to be talking about this entropic leader, how he or she can design. And if you're not there, we're going to be talking about how to design a leadership for purpose. Now, designing this leadership for purpose is going to truly take a commitment on your part. It's going to take a major commitment on your part. And this is a challenge, and a lot of times that we lack the commitment, and myself included, and especially when it relates to those personal matters, those things that we have to, where it's not dependent on someone else, and this course of action or change, this transformation that needs to take place, it's solely dependent upon us, on how we respond to the low entropy that's taking place in our life, knowing that those things that are in our personal lives that are unattended, we don't deal with those things, the likelihood of them gaining momentum, if you will, and transferring or moving in from one space to another space. Now we're dealing with a matter that is more of a high entropy level. The likelihood of that is major. And so for the entropic leader, he or she understands that, and they're more proactive than reactive. So we're going to dive into that and what that looks like for the leader who is ready to design leadership for purpose. So I'm looking at my notes here, so I do apologize. I'm not looking at the screen here. So first, we're going to talk about discovering how to harness chaos as a catalyst for innovation, not a barrier. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. Chaos, as I've kind of alluded to, chaos is inevitable. That's just a part of life. And I think that we as people, oftentimes we have a tendency to want to try to get the chaos out of the way as soon as possible. Or at least the sight of chaos, we have a tendency to be in a space where it's just not comfortable, and just understanding that this chaos is not comfortable. But here's how you use the chaos as a catalyst that's going to propel us into recognizing that the chaos is not a barrier. The chaos is not a barrier. The chaos does not come to prevent us from becoming the best versions of ourselves. Matter of fact, I would state it otherwise. I would state that the chaos has come to really prepare us to become that better version of ourselves. And so here's one truth, one fact, that you cannot fry an egg without first cracking it. And then, applying heat to that egg, or whether you're scrambled or however you may like it. You cannot prepare an egg. You cannot prepare a piece of meat for lunch or whatever the case might be without adding some heat to it, without being uncomfortable in our own lives. And yes, it's chaos. It's confusion. It's disorder. In most cases, at the most inconvenient time. And for many of us, it's just an uncomfortable place to be. But I want to share with you is that your best growth, my best growth, your best growth is going to be in the midst of chaos. It's going to be that place where you are feeling the most uncomfortable. It's going to be that place where you just kind of feel like you might want to throw your hands up and just don't know. You might be unwilling to say, I don't know, but the telltale signs around you say you don't know. And the challenge is that a lot of times we're afraid of being in that place of not knowing. And so what do? We make up the stuff along the way. We make it up along the way. We act as if we know, but in reality, we're feeling stuck. We're feeling perhaps at the beginning of a space where we're dealing with a low entropy. There's some disorder, but not enough to be completely uncomfortable. But knowing that the matters, that when we don't take care of those matters personally, doing the ensuing threat is that we go from a low entropy space, and we're talking about this disorder. We go from a place of low entropy to a place of high entropy, where it's highly, a lot more chaos or chaotic than its former state or previous state. So we know that threat is ensuing, and so what happens in most cases, we perhaps maybe are now dealing with anxiety, and even further, it could be dealing with a depression. And I even want to, I'm not a mental professional or anything like that, but I am just an avid student, if you will, of psychology and things of that nature. And as a life coach for just about 10 years, and specializing in transformational leadership for men for actually nearly 30 years, I've learned a few things. I've learned that, and not only just working with my clients, but I've learned some things about myself, a lot of stuff about myself. And I think first, before we can even begin to talk about leadership, it must start with us. And unfortunately, a lot of times it doesn't start with us. We have a tendency to look at leadership as something that you got to spend a fortune on. You got to go to the best schools. That's not true. That's not true at all. I've discovered in this life the best schooling for leadership is life. I have discovered that. And I'm sure many people could challenge me on that. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I probably would be open to hear some different things, but I just believe that the on-the-job training, so to speak, is the best schooling that most of us can get. And yes, there are the formal things that we may apply to leadership and things of that nature. But a lot of times the formal things concerning leadership, those things go out the window when you don't know how to deal with life. The ebbs and flows of life that just come out of just doing life. Whether you're single, you're married, or whatever your situation might be, there is a propensity to believe that leadership is, again, as I stated, you've got to spend a fortune on leadership, but yet leadership is right at your front door. And many of us, we don't see that. We don't see that. And it truly is unfortunate, because this is the way that we harness the chaos. Because much of the leadership that we are, I believe, much of the leadership that we are trying to make sense of, some of the top schools, a lot of times these things are in controlled environments. And this is even before I started this discussion, or at least was preparing for this week. I thought about how much of our leadership is or makes up of fear. And that is the reason why I say, in most cases, this form of leadership that we call leadership in the professional arena, it is a controlled environment by way of fear, whether it's transactional or many of the other various styles and types of leadership. A lot of what we do as people and trying to get people to or influencing people, a lot of it comes from fear. And truly, that is the. It's unfortunate, but that is the groundwork, the foundation of just even how the world was brought into existence, is through fear. And I could go on and on about this because there's a conversation I did sometime last year in relationship to how the Romans led in fear. And it was obviously not just the Romans, but it was many other kingdoms and empires before the Romans. They led in fear, and their influence was fear. And so consequently, what do you think that we're going to do in most cases? We're going to try to rule our households in fear. We're going to deal with our children in fear. We're even going to try to deal with our spouse in fear. And that's not leadership. That's the way of leadership or different styles of leadership. But the only way that we can harness the chaos and turn it into a catalyst, turn it into a movement, something that propels us to into greater spaces and places. We don't get those things out of fear. We obtain those things when we're sitting in our stuff. We obtain the catalyst or the information to take to that next level as we're designing leadership for purpose. We learn how to use the chaos as a catalyst, but you can't do it in fear, because in fear, we're going to be running away from it. But shedding light on leadership, we're drawn to it with a greater understanding that if we move forward, move toward the light, move toward the understanding that if I understand, prepare myself to understand that, hey, why is this happening? Because the truth of the matter is that if we all responded to chaos the same, most of us would not be where we're at right now. The things that we have achieved in life, they would not have come to pass if we have made ourselves or become subject to this chaos and looked at the chaos looked at the chaos as fear, as that he or she does not want me to accomplish this, or looking at our haters, giving our haters all this power, and truly they have no power. But this is what we give them. I'll say it that way. We give them the power to come in to our lives or enter into that safe place in our lives, that place of peace. And when we give them permission to enter into that space, it's like a bull in a china store. Just chaos just ensues just all over the place. But when we stand at the gate, knowing that chaos is a part of life, we're not to run from the chaos. And it doesn't mean that we have to go looking for chaos. That's not what I'm saying. Because chaos is a part of life. It's inevitable that it's going to knock on your door, as it's knocked on my door and many of your doors. This chaos has been what's for dinner, what's for lunch, whatever the case might be. That has been what we've been dealing with. So in order to turn the chaos into a catalyst, we have to be prepared to look at it differently. But if we're coming out of a fear base, and this is a whole mindset shift, if you will, because if we're coming out of the chaos and are entering into the chaos, seeing that chaos as fear, because let's face it, that's what we were all born into on some level. In case in point, my daughter, my baby girl, she is going to be 2 soon. And she's watching different YouTube videos that I allow her to watch. And so I believe myself to be just kind of that parent that's, hey, what are you watching? I'm making sure that she's not watching anything that she shouldn't be watching, or any videos that might come up. I'm just fast forwarding or just bypassing, going to the next video or things of that nature. Just what parents do. So I found out that there's things that I just can't control. But here's the point. I look back at maybe just a few months ago or probably several months ago, I would say, she had just been walking throughout the house with, just enjoying the freedom. And then fast forward now, several months in front of us now, she's she's afraid to go into the kitchen or at least walk in different areas of the house. And the question that came up for me is, wow, where did she get that from? Because I in no way feel reluctant or dealing with anything that's preventing me from sharing that freedom to walk around the house. And I don't believe I display that with her or give her any indication that she should be fearful of anything. And then I thought about the videos that she's been watching. Some of the videos, because as I stated earlier, I can't control everything. And there's some videos that start off like, oh, that's a nice video. The next, you've got someone jumping out of the closet, and scaring the living daylights out of the kid. And I've seen my baby girl jump up and I was like, hey, what's wrong? And I looked down at the iPad and there was a video of something to do with Halloween and things of that nature. And I said, oh, that's interesting. The fear was introduced to her. It didn't come from me, nor my wife, but it was introduced to her. Then I even thought about my own parenting style. I thought about that. Looking back, how my mother dealt with me and the rest of my other siblings, I was reflecting on that. That a lot of it was fear too. And in turn, I could be just as much as part of that fear as the video was. And this is just something I just recently have been looking at, actually, recently learned. So I'm sharing it with you. And so learning how to use the chaos and turning it into a catalyst. Turning it into a catalyst for innovation, we have to ask ourselves, where did the fear come from? Where did it come from? Was there a purpose for the fear? And I want to submit to you that with the fear, you can't lead properly. You'll do the same thing that was done to you. The same fear that causes you anxiety. You and I, anxiety on different levels. You end up placing that fear, or we can end up placing that fear on our children. Not only in our children within our household, but we can deal with our spouses in that same way. Take it a step further. As a leader, we can deal with our subordinates, our colleagues in the same fashion because of this fear. So the same thing that causes us anxiety, we inadvertently place it on others around us. And it really is not necessarily the leadership being an influence as it is the fear that is the influence. And most of us don't like fear on some level, or we're fearful of something on some level. As in with the example I was just sharing with you moments ago about my daughter. I had to ask the question, where did she get this fear from? So now I'm prepared to use that fear or what she's dealing with as a catalyst for innovation to help her come out of that place, even as a 2-year-old. We have to be prepared to ask ourselves the tough questions. Where did that come from? Even if it's not fear. Even if it's not fear. I would even submit that fear has a bigger platform in most of our lives than we care to give it. Because we're fearful of something. And ideally, that fear does not come as a lone ranger. That fear, in most cases, brings some of the other things along with it. Perhaps anger, feeling that we are not enough, being insufficient on some level. So this fear, again, it carries with it hate. And I am a huge believer that we've got two different situations in life. It's either love and hate. It's either or. And there's going to be fruit for love, and there's fruit for hate. So when I say fruit, I mean in the branches, so to speak, or the leaves, the things that extend from love. Love is, I believe, the highest a level of understanding. No, not in its technical term. I get that. But love is a teaching, I believe. And we have to be, as leaders, be prepared to become students. And it can be hard to become students of love or trying to design this leadership for purpose, which you and I, as leaders, and our subordinates are going to be able to draw so much from us, rather than the leader that leads in fear. So it truly is incumbent upon us to be prepared to ask those tough questions, do some self-reflection, ensuring that we are submitting ourselves because I want to change this situation. I want to become a better version of myself. Because when you and I can become as leaders a better version of ourselves, we're going to interact with people differently and cause them to become a better version of themselves as well. And that is how we influence people, ladies and gentlemen. That's how we influence people. Because if we're not prepared to become a better version of ourselves, we're not doing anything different than what was already done to us. And we're perpetuating this fear-based leadership over and over. And there's, I believe it's Einstein says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Fear essentially begets fear. And the same old styles of leadership have been tried to the point they've been exhausted. And those have been exhausted. And to the point where we've got people are coming up with new ideas for leadership. There are no new ideas for leadership. The reality is that when we get into life and we are available to our different experiences rather than trying to avoid them, we become the best versions of ourselves. That's how we influence people. That's how we become great influencers in life. By learning how to place our own mask on, as the flight attendant would say during their safety demonstration. If you've ever flown on an airplane before. Learning how to put on our own mask and deal with the things that we need to deal with. And knowing that as we are turning those catalysts, the chaos, as we're turning that chaos into a catalyst, is absolutely going to be uncomfortable. That's just part of the growth process. As I mentioned earlier, it's impossible to scramble an egg without first cracking the egg and then applying heat to the egg. And voila, you've got a scrambled egg. So it's impossible to go from one state to another state without first recognizing the condition that you're in, the condition of the first state. And when we fail to recognize those situations that we're in or those different experiences, and here's the thing, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that it's okay how people have mistreated you in life. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's our stuff to deal with. It's our stuff to deal with now. And the people that may have been the culprits and this nonsense that they've added to our lives, and now we're having to work through these different situations. In most cases, they may be long gone, perhaps even dead by now. I don't know. And it's just not to wish anything upon anyone, but it is to understand that the matter is for us now to deal with. And if we don't recognize the state or the condition that we're in mentally and emotionally, we're, in most cases, well, I want to assume that we're going from a place of low entropy, but in some cases, we're already into that place of high entropy, where things are just all the more chaotic. And it's difficult for us to get a handle on certain things. And this is the way that we are, as my first line of discussion says, harness chaos as a catalyst for innovation, not a barrier. Now, this is how we get there. We get there by first recognizing our own condition. And if you are a man who, be it executive or not, you are a man who is having some challenges with recognizing or looking at your first condition, I do offer a 30-minute complimentary coaching. The link is on the screen. That's bit.ly/free 30-minute coaching. You can contact me there on that link for more information on how we can put together a strategy for you. That's ultimately what we need to do, is put together a strategy so that we can get you out of that situation, and so that you are prepared to look at your first condition, or the condition that you're in at this moment. And as chaotic as it may be, let's take a look at it. Let's be prepared to dissect it and make sense of it, and begin to put those things in order. Because as I stated earlier, entropy is a fact of life, and we're not going to escape that. None of us are. We're not going to escape that. And anything that we are unwilling to deal with, an emotional, mental, or a level, physical level, or let's even just say getting the car fixed. It's understood that if that car is not going to remain in the same state, at some point the car gets worse. And that's what we're dealing with within our own selves on a personal level. The matters have not gotten better, because, again, this is the second law of thermodynamics. As I stated, it is the natural state of disorder. And it just happens for all of us. So we're to, again, use the chaos as a catalyst. Know that chaos is absolutely a part of life, and there's no way of escaping it. If it's not your day on Tuesday, it might be your day on Wednesday. If it's not your day on Wednesday, it might be your day on Thursday. And the interesting thing about it, we don't get to pick the day of the week which chaos shows up. We just don't. And that's just the reality. We don't get to pick the day of the week or at our own convenience when chaos shows up. And for this gentleman, or for the woman who is the entropic leader, he or she understands that. They understand that. And they're ready to roll their sleeves up and deal with the matter at hand. Because as long as the matter is out of order, especially in our personal lives, it could be unforgiveness. It could be a host of different things. Excuse me. It could be some level of offense. Someone that did something, said something, was rude to you, and you've been carrying this thing for years. So it can be almost anything that you're carrying that has affected our psyche, our mental state, that keeps us uncomfortable, maybe sleepless nights, and we haven't dealt with it yet. Those matters and conditions don't just remain the same, they get worse. They get worse. So, as I stated earlier, you can check out the link on the screen here if you are so inclined to. That is a complimentary coaching session, or strategy session. We can talk more about some of the things that we're talking about now, and get you on the right track, set you up to win. So we're not using chaos as a barrier. And this is the result of harnessing that chaos, using it as a catalyst, and not allowing that chaos to become a barrier that prevents us from moving to the next level. And I would even say leadership is much more like levels, if you will, like in school, be it primary or secondary, school, K through 12 or college level, that there are levels to leadership. And life is not going to give you any more than you're ready to, that you believe that you can handle. It's not going to put any more on you. In most cases, many of us are dealing with the very things that we did not handle when it was time to handle those things, or we didn't understand. But nevertheless, you can't go on to the next level unless you tackle, or at least harness the chaos that we were originally presented with, regardless of that time in our life. And this is the interesting thing, I believe, that with life is that it doesn't wait for anyone. It doesn't care what age you are. It does not care what age you are. If you were 5 years old, 7 years old, 3 years old, life is just lifing. It doesn't care how old you are. And we're going to deal with the challenges that come from those things that just happen, whether we understand them or not. But nevertheless, I believe the chaos has been presented for a reason, to help us dial in and become the best versions of ourselves. Lead with compassion while maintaining clarity and conviction. Now, this is yet another powerful discussion that needs to be had, because I think that part of mastering ourselves are, I don't really care for that word master, to be honest. But part of understanding ourselves, you first have to learn how to give to yourself. And oftentimes this leadership that we call leadership, I guess, it calls for us to give to others first. And I would again submit that you have to take care of yourself first. We have to take care of ourselves as leaders first. But the challenge is that most of us don't know how to take care of ourselves. So out of this fear, as I mentioned earlier in the first discussion here, there is this desire to make sure that everyone else is taken care of because of how we believe people see us, or how we may be perceived by people. So there is that there is that fear again, and so with that we are taking care of everyone else, and it's hard to take care of other people when you haven't taken care of yourself. You can, and most of us have, but if we're honest with ourselves, it's turned into a disaster, because eventually what happens, we, just as people, we start resenting the other person, because wait a minute, we're at some point we're thinking about, well, what about me? I haven't taken care of my things. Because let's face it, when we take care of ourselves, that's when we can give out of that flow. But when we have not taken care of ourselves, compassion is the last thing that shows up, if at all. So, leading with compassion while maintaining clarity. You've got to remember that first thing that we talked about. You've got to remember that first discussion that I've shared with you. That is looking at your first state, that condition that you're in right now, whatever that might be for you. If you're dealing with unforgiveness or resentment, jealousy, again, it can be a host of different things. Maybe you're the person that's offended someone. But nevertheless, You've got to remember the first discussion, harnessing the chaos, as a catalyst and being prepared to innovate through that understanding. And with understanding comes compassion. Let me clarify that one, because if we're looking at ourselves in regards to doing the work and making this leadership, making or preparing ourselves to become the best version of ourselves, if we're looking at that, if we're looking at ourselves in the mirror, it's almost impossible not to be filled with compassion. It's almost impossible not to be filled with compassion, that you enter into this space where you're able to lead with compassion. That's why I said the first part of our discussion, as I was just talking about harnessing the chaos, you've got to remember that first. That's the first level. Because you cannot, you can come from a place of understanding and still be evil, still lack the compassion. Yeah, I said evil. Because when we make this thing about us, learning the things that we need to learn to become more hospitable, more compassionate, more about giving, more about becoming authentic, showing up as integrity. When we make this thing about us and what we can give to humanity, it's impossible to show up without compassion. But if we show up without that compassion, it's been some other agenda. And most cases, the other agenda is control. I believe there is the control for the wrong motivation, the control that does not inspire. And I believe there is control that is for the right motivation. And in fact, it absolutely inspires others to become the best version of themselves. So the short answer, to lead with compassion while maintaining clarity and conviction, you must remember the first discussion, harnessing the chaos as a catalyst for innovation, not a barrier. And that's where we get those same convictions from that first discussion. Now we're talking about the second point here. We're talking about the second point here, that is lead with compassion while maintaining clarity and conviction. Clarity on that very first discussion that I just shared with you, that is harnessing the chaos as a catalyst for innovation, not a barrier. That's where your conviction is going to come from. That's going to be where your clarity comes from. Because when we can look at the first condition, we can be prepared to move and certain situations, prepared to understand. And knowing that the first condition, as chaotic as it may be, it is a level to this leadership, being the best version of ourselves, leading with authenticity, leading with integrity. There are levels to this thing. but it doesn't come out of fear. It does not come out of fear. But when it does come out of fear, it's for the wrong motivation. But when it doesn't come out of fear, it comes out for the love of humanity. Because let's face it, there's nothing wrong with leadership. Leadership is absolutely important. And I'm not just talking about, as I stated earlier, I'm not just talking about leadership as a profession on your job. No, I'm talking about leadership also in your home. It absolutely applies. It's absolutely meaningful. But many of us have just tossed that whole teachings and understandings and ideas and concepts. We've tossed that stuff in the garbage and went after the thing that has cost us a fortune. And yet the very thing that you needed to learn was right in your backyard. So it's important for us to understand that leadership starts at home. My first assignment was leadership at home. And though that classroom for a lot of us can look completely different, obviously, depending on how we were brought up or just different backgrounds, lifestyles and things of that nature. So that classroom is going to look different. Some of us may have not gotten the leadership, but doesn't mean that you can't learn it. It doesn't mean that you can't be prepared to go back to the drawing board and say, what am I missing? I want to be a better version of myself. Because when we're a better version of ourselves, we can help others become a better version of themselves. So lead with compassion while maintaining clarity and conviction. You've got to remember the first step. That is learning how to harness the chaos as a catalyst for innovation, not a barrier. Chaos does not come to prevent us from being successful. Chaos comes from the lesson comes for us to learn it and to use that lesson to take the next lesson. And knowing that if we're not taking care of the prerequisites first, you can't even begin to start the course, or at least see the things, see the chaos and the sometimes the confusion, being uncomfortable as their prerequisites to leadership. Not this leadership that's out of fear, but the authentic leader. The leader, he or she that leads with integrity. The entropic leader. The leader that knows that entropy is a part of life, and unless we deal with it, things will just get worse. Design systems and cultures that empower teams to flourish amid uncertainty. This is interesting. Just as I stated moments ago, this entropy, it is uncertainty. It's disorder. It's things have gone awry, if you will, and it's having to try to put the cat back in the bag, if you will, so to speak. So it is absolutely uncertainty. Again, in the midst of doing life, there's absolutely going to be uncertainty. But through the first step, through the second step that I shared with you, we can design systems. And, let's face it, I do believe that we're all born to be leaders. Absolutely. Some of us are ready to take the reins of that, and some of us are not, for a host of different reasons. That we are not prepared to, again, to take the reins of leadership. But let's face it, you're already doing it at home. Some of us may or may not be doing it at home. But it's unfortunate because if you're not having, or at least to have a concept of leadership at home, or at least practicing leadership at home, it's going to potentially, it can feel like you're under the thumb of someone else. That's why it's so important for us as men to walk in this space as leaders. That you don't feel the pressure and the weight of being led by someone else, or at least feel like you're being controlled by someone else. Because you already understand what's desired, or what is needed for it, what is needed to become a leader. Because you're already doing it at home. I believe our first assignment as leaders starts at home. However that may look like, good, bad, or indifferent. Maybe your dad wasn't there. Maybe mom wasn't there. It doesn't matter. That is our first assignment dealing with leadership. And let's just face it, some of the assignments are just absolutely awful. But if we don't take these situations, the chaos that comes up in life, and sometimes the chaos or a lot of times the chaos that shows up in life is the same things that we've dealt with, that we have not dealt with. They keep showing up over and over and over. Life keeps giving us opportunities to take hold of the situation. And sometimes we might have to slow down. So you will have to slow down in order to understand. In order to take this situation by the reins and have some control over it. Being able to look at the first condition, being able to look at the condition, your state of mind, your condition that you're in right now. But the more that we don't look at that, we're unprepared to look at that. The condition of our minds, our present condition, the more we are reluctant to look at those things, we then become controlled by the very thing that we're unwilling to deal with. We can become controlled by the fear. Not only is it the fear the thing that we're giving to ourselves, but it's the fear that others are placing out there as well. So at some point, we have to make up our minds in regards to, are we going to harness the chaos? Are we going to stop and reflect and begin to make sense of what's taking place here? Why am I responding the way that I am? Why am I feeling a certain way? Because anxiety now may have taken over now. We have to be prepared to deal with those things in order to get back into the driver's seat. And I think I would even go as far as to step out on a limb and say most of us feel like other people have control of our lives. Let's just face it. Most of us feel like other people or other entities have control over our lives. And that's because we have failed to take hold of the reins. Because rest assured, the same chaos, not necessarily the same chaos, but chaos affects all of us. I'd rather be handling my own chaos because I know that the other leaders and powers or people to be or different departments within the government or on your job, I know those people themselves individually. They're dealing with chaos. And they have to be prepared to manage their own chaos. So why on God's green earth would I want to have them in charge of, or at least the image of them, me feeling that I'm not in control of my life because I've given someone the authority or the responsibility for dealing with the chaos that I'm not willing to deal with. That's not going to happen, not for me at least. So I want to encourage you to harness the chaos. No, I've talked about this at length, and it's important for us to harness this chaos because much like I mentioned, the next topic or the topic thereafter, the harnessing the chaos, was leading with compassion. You can't get to the lead with compassion. You can't get to that place. You can't get to the place of designing systems and cultures that empower teams to flourish amid uncertainty, which is my third point. You can't get to that place without first harnessing the chaos that's taking over in our own individual lives. You cannot get to that place of becoming that entropic leader because we all face chaos. Every last one of us. Moms, dads, children, it doesn't matter. Single people, married people, it doesn't matter. We all are facing chaos and dealing with it. So we have to be prepared to manage the chaos that is in our own lives. And looking at that chaos, not from a fear base, but from an understanding that without this chaos, I cannot get to the next level. Without understanding this chaos, I cannot get to the next level. None of this other stuff that I've talked about is even going to begin to make sense until we look at the condition that we're in right now. So we design we design systems and cultures. And this is the effects of this, or the result, if you will, the flow that comes from this. That because we've taken care of self, learned how to deal with the chaos and the confusion and the levels of being uncomfortable, and knowing that our subordinates or even other leaders that may have not gone through this process, that may not understand the very things that I'm sharing with you now, knowing what they're facing and helping them to figure out or to understand that, hey, rather than allow this chaos to overtake you and you see this chaos as a barrier, but yet this chaos has come to propel you to your next space, your next assignment, your next level. And that's what we get to do as leaders because we've been through it. We've experienced it. We understand it. And so when our subordinates or other leadership are dealing with certain things, we can look in our repertoire of experiences, our filing system, and be prepared to say, okay, I know exactly what that looks like. And I the interesting thing about I think this style of leadership, it makes us great listeners. We turn out to be great listeners because of that. Because of the compassion that we draw and understanding our own selves. We're not here to destroy ourselves. We're not here to beat ourselves up. But we're here to learn from the chaos as it presents itself at different times of life, at different amounts, different variables that show up. We're here to learn from it. And we're here to bring the chaos, make the chaos subject to us. Not that we're subject to the chaos, but make the chaos subject to us. So that we're in the driver's seat. And we can put that new leader, man or woman, we can help them get back into the driver's seat pertaining to the things that they may be dealing with personally or professionally. So that's how we design systems. Because out of all of this, what I'm sharing with you, there's a flow. There's a system that's created. It didn't just pop up out of thin air. All right, give me just a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to see if I got any comments here. I've been talking for quite some time now, and I don't know what it looks like on the other side here. I'm just really kind of looking at my screen here, not even looking at the comments here. So, what we got here? There's some other things that I wanted to share during this broadcast. I didn't get a chance to, and I don't want to be on terribly long. We'll save that for another day. But so I'll talk about those things next week in our discussion. So lastly, I want to talk about align personal values with collective purpose to inspire lasting change. That's going to be the last talking point here. So again, as I stated earlier, each of these topics here, there are levels. There are levels to becoming the best version of yourself, levels to designing this leadership for purpose. This entropic leader, this leader who is able to, make the chaos subject to their situations, make the chaos bow down to their situations, because the chaos eventually we have to. It is beneath us, and it only becomes beneath us. Not in a sense that we don't deal with chaos, but it becomes beneath us in the matter that we're controlling that chaos. We don't know the time of the day the chaos will show up. We don't know that. The chaos does not always have to come from us. It can be from family members who are showing up with situations that are out of order, or it could be from colleagues. As we are leaders showing up at work, our colleagues or subordinates are dealing with matters, personal and professional matters, or maybe from other employees, from one employee to another employee. So again, this chaos can come from all different directions. And this is where we align those personal values up. As I stated earlier, we're coming from a place that where we are where we're grown personally and professionally. That's the space that we're coming from, where we've grown personally and professionally. And we are walking and maintaining this clarity through a conviction, through inspiration, not external motivation, but internal, or something that inspires us from the inside. More so, again, learning about ourselves. We're not coming here to condemn ourselves or tear ourselves down for the sake of fear, but we're doing just the opposite. We're flipping the script on fear and making a decision that, or at least coming to a greater understanding, is that when we're leading out of fear, we cause other people to lead or respond out of fear, doing things that they would not, in some cases, they would not normally do. And when we respond this way as leaders, that harnessing the chaos as a catalyst, that leading with a compassion and maintaining that compassion for clarity and conviction, designing systems, these become our value systems. they become our value systems. And when our value systems align with when our value systems align on how we treat people and it is a moral thing. It absolutely is a moral thing. And when our value systems align with how we treat people, how we've taken care of our own selves amidst of the challenges we may have dealt with in life, now we can either value or place value on the negative things, which many of us have, but we can either continue to place value on those negative things that have showed up in life and see the chaos that has shown up as that people are haters or whatever other people are dealing with. But we can potentially see that those things that we are looking at or that we value, we're looking at those things from a wrong perspective. And I use that very loosely because that can be that individual's perspective, but nevertheless, in order to draw out the fruit, in order to be in a different place by 30 days from now, we've got to know that there's a difference on how we may be looking at it and how it should be looked at. There is a difference. So that's why I say right or wrong, because there's one way to look at it that's going to continue to give us the same results. And in most cases, that's the way that many of us have been looking at it. And so if we keep aligning this perspective, it is also our value system. As I mentioned, the chaos. We're not harnessing the chaos. We're just allowing it to just take over us, if you will. We're submitting to the chaos. And the more we submit to the chaos, the more we're now dealing with this high level of entropy. Things are completely out of order. And the value system that we're lining up for as we have taken upon this belief system, it's not proven. It's not proven. So we keep getting the same results over and over, searching for help, searching for a system, if you will. Because let's face it, you've got to apply a system to the chaos in order to bring it under control. But when we don't apply a system or have a system for the chaos, the high entropy ensues, and we naturally are going to become more disheveled. Things will be more just out of order. But conversely, when we align our personal value systems or values or belief systems, as we are drawing on this information I've been sharing with you, it in fact does lead to lasting change. It leads to designing leadership for a greater purpose rather than that fear-based purpose of leadership I've been talking about. It leads to success within your own household on a personal level. It leads to professional success as a leader. It leads to greater opportunities as a leader. Most importantly, it leads to making a connection with humanity. And that's exactly what we want to do, is make the connection as leaders with humanity. Because let's face it, we've all been lost at some point. Every single one of us have been lost. Not knowing what to do, how to tackle this thing. We've come to some kind of crossroad in life. And we've been out of touch with reality. I count myself in that group. And at times we just didn't know what we're going to do. How were we going to tackle this mess, this behemoth of a mess that we're dealing with called chaos? Because let's face it, chaos obviously just doesn't hit or just come as, a lot of times chaos doesn't come just as a one time. It's usually hitting us from just all turns, all angles. And sometimes that chaos can absolutely look like it's just been ongoing for all week, all month, or even years. So as men, we have to make a decision. And that decision first has to deal with the facts, is that entropy is a part of life. There's the low level of entropy, undealt with. It takes on another form of itself. It becomes a high level of entropy, a greater level of disorder. And at some point, we have a difficulty managing that. So, as men, we have to make up our minds. We have to make a decision. And as I stated just seconds ago, that this entropy is a fact of life. It doesn't have to be a way of life, but it's a fact of life, that life comes with disorder. And we are responsible for the disorder in our respective lives. And some cases where we might be in a place where we're wanting to find the culprit who did this, or just have a difficult time forgiving that person or forgiving someone else. Either way, it's our stuff. And we have to be prepared to deal with that. We have to be prepared to look at this entropy as a fact of life, and it is incumbent upon all of us to be prepared to take life by the reins and finally come to a place where we're dealing with those matters that need to be dealt with. As I stated also, is that I am a men's life coach. I offer a free or complimentary 30-minute coaching session strategy to iron out the kinks that you might be dealing with pertaining to this discussion. So you can reach out to me. The information is on the screen there. That's bit.ly/free 30-minute coaching strategy. So you can check out the link there and get more information. Send me a message, and I'd love to kind of help you make sense of this here. That being said, we're going to say goodbye. I do apologize. I did not have any music. I kind of love the music or the introductions with music. Didn't like to kind of do my thing, but I was a little bit disshuffled this afternoon, or this evening, I should say, as I was getting started here. I just kind of was running late here, but I will be back next week, and we're going to do this all over. And I'm going to be doing the interviews as well, so stay tuned for that. We did a Leadership Thursday last year, and real quick here before I wrap it up here, I want to say thank you to all of my followers who have been on LinkedIn, even on Facebook, and the few on YouTube as well, because I some parts of me, I'll be honest with you, some parts of me felt like I had done an injustice to you as well, not intentionally, but again, when we're dealing with our stuff, we sometimes we make it about us, and that's what I did. I made it about me, and so that reason I've been MIA for a little bit, for a long while, I should say, probably about 5 months MIA. But previously, I had been doing a live stream on LinkedIn, dedicated on a live stream on LinkedIn each Thursday, Leadership Thursday. And I started that live stream in August. So I was a latecomer to the LinkedIn audio events. But during that time, I amassed a nice following. And again, this is not about metrics or vanity or anything of that nature, but it is to, as I stated earlier, to apologize because I did feel like I did each of you a disservice, because many of you were showing up every week and staying for hours upon hours until LinkedIn was closing the door on us and say, "Hey, you guys got to go home," that kind of thing. Their LinkedIn audio events lasted for 4 hours, which is a really good amount of time. But most of you were staying with me for that 4 hours. We're shutting it down, man. So I want to say again, I apologize and thank you for being a part of what I have been able to establish on LinkedIn, and the growth that I have the growth that has shown up in me. So thank you for being a part of that growth. And I promise you, I will do differently, and we're going to do better. And the coming shows here for this brand new show here called That Man Show, we're talking about leadership, more about leadership. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about spirituality and so much more. So I want to encourage you to come back, be a part of the new show, the different conversations. And as I stated earlier, we'll also have guests on the show as well. So we'll interview other LinkedIn professionals from different spaces, just kind of help each other out and get your information out there and share it with the LinkedIn family or whatever platform you might be dedicated to. Sharing your content on those different platforms. So that being said, guys, I want to say thank you for being a part of this broadcast, and good evening to you. We will see you next week on Thursday at 7 p.m. for a brand new show. So again, thank you for being a part of the broadcast. That is That Man Show. I am signing out. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.